Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, we did get a sneak peek today of GoldShell's new miner series. This is going to be called the Echo. Seems like it's going to be something in between like the box miners and a full-size miner, something like along the lines of the LITE series. We'll talk about the limited information they gave us, and it looks like Alephium and Kaspa are going to be the first algo, so that's what piqued my interest, and this thing is going to come out soon. So we're going to just do some rough guesstimates. We're going to play with the numbers, look at what prices could be, potential hash rates can be, and kind of what it's looking like, right? So that way, when it does get announced, we can kind of see if it's going to be a potential buy or not, right? So if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get to this thing. So they gave us the tweet today, and they didn't give us a ton of info, right? They gave us essentially a blurry picture of it. So here's the picture here. You can see the Echo in the middle, and on the bottom, are you ready for the new miner series? Okay, so this to me is going to be their new lineup. Most likely, again, replacing the LITE series, right? As we read the description of the tweet, new miner launching on 8/15 just in time for our 5th anniversary. Experience the perfect blend of power and silence in home mining. Okay, so that's already giving us the big clue that most likely it's going to be more powerful and it's going to be an in-home ASIC. Okay, so it's going to be, we'll look at the picture here because that's the other clue. And silence in home mining with exciting giveaways and more. Get ready for the future with our latest innovations. Stay tuned. And then hashtag Alephium, hashtag Kaspa. Okay, so they're giving us the clue there that the first two algos are going to be the cash cows, which are Alephium and Kaspa. So again, that's what got my interest right off the bat. As we look at the picture, again, it's a blurry picture. We can see the miner here in the middle. We can see what looks like two of the fans, right? So if we were to stop here, it looks very similar to a box miner. The biggest difference though is look at the height of this thing. It is way taller, mostly going to be way longer. So it does seem like it's going to potentially be, my guess is going to be a light miner replacement. So think something between along the lines of like 800 to 1100, 1200 watts or so. Okay. And then based off the size, it's going to be taller, potentially longer, but about the same width as one of the little box miners. Okay. So again, nothing for sure, nothing concrete, but based on the description, based on the picture, that's what it's looking like. Again, the picture makes it look like it can be something like kind of maybe a little bit smaller than like a jazz miner, but that kind of profile, right? Skinny, tall, potentially kind of longer, maybe closer to like full-size hash boards of like a larger unit. But again, just similar to like the Bombax units and such, where it's just one, maybe two of those things. Okay, so kind of interesting there. So we can kind of speculate on potentially what we can expect. Okay, so what we've seen in the past with GoldShell is a lot of the other units, it's typically the same chips. Like I don't expect to see like an efficiency gain with any of these two algorithms because again, they already have the existing chips. It's just going to be in a denser unit, and it's going to be something again in between, which is something we've kind of been talking about, that like Kaspa specifically needs an in-between unit like big time, especially now because of how much the hash rate's been going up. The existing models like the K Box Pro was kind of the closest thing to in-between unit. This is essentially like the KS0 now. Okay, it's to the point where if you want to stay in the game, you want to keep playing the game where we're increasing, you need more hash rate. Okay, and that's the name of the game right now because the hash rate is up to 750 petahash and it's just going to increase. This is not even including the Bitmain units. So as crazy as it sounds, like an exahash by mid-September is not even like crazy now. That's kind of looking like what it may potentially be. So, like for example, this guy, that is potentially why this guy went for freaking like essentially on a fire sale. Okay, we're kind of speculating like, man, it's so cheap that it seems like they may be kind of discontinuing it, and this is kind of confirming it, right? So this new model is essentially going to replace this guy, right? Because right now, for example, the K0 Ultra, which was on the low end, is just way too little hash rate now, right? It's to the point now where you literally need like a handful of units for it to even remotely make sense. And currently, because it is such a small unit, the shipping is what kind of kills you, right? For example, right now they're so low, it's to the point where the shipping price is as much as the damn unit, right? The units are 150 and the shipping's $100. Like it's to the point where it doesn't make sense. Like the $150 price point does, but the shipping kind of kills. And this is not just, you know, this is pretty much the majority of the resellers. It just costs a lot to ship those things. It needs to get to the point where they're creating like a freaking 5-pack box or something where it's all shipped in one box and you're paying shipping that one time. Okay, because right now it's the shipping alone kills you. Like for example, right now this is the better deal because of that. You're paying shipping for one box versus 4 of those things. Okay, so definitely like this guy is essentially now like what the KS0 Ultra was. Okay, now we need something kind of in between. Again, if you're trying to keep up with the game, right? At this point, it's hard if you're just starting. Like if you're already in the game, you've already been mining a cycle or two, you're kind of just increasing efficiency and trying to keep up with the hash rate at this point, which is like, that's my game. And again, it's just, I'm already in it. I'm already here. I'm already doing the damn thing. So that's my game plan, right? As far as somebody new coming in with these units, it's a little bit harder. Like starting with this guy, sure, but like getting one KS0 Ultra, not going to do a whole lot, right? So something in between is definitely needed. So as we compare specs and kind of speculate what this one potentially could be, we're going to actually scale it based off of the KA box, just because the KA box Pro does just seem like it was an overclocked KA box. Okay, because if you look at the specs, this guy is actually more efficient. Okay, so it does seem again like this guy was just overclocked to get that 1.6. So we're going to scale it based off of this unit. And essentially, again, from what we've seen with GoldShell is I don't expect to see an efficiency gain. I just expect to see more chips. Okay, so if we do it comparatively, if we were to do this unit, it could potentially be 3 of them in one. Okay, it could potentially just be 2 of them. But realistically, for me, that wouldn't be appealing. Like what would be more appealing is if they were able to go a little bit bigger and just go up to a 1200 watt potentially, right? What would make more sense realistically is to be closer to the 1000 watt range. Okay, because on a 110 volt on a 15 amp circuit, your max is like a little over 1400 watts. So if this thing's already 1200 watts, you're gonna be just about maxed out on that circuit. Like for that room, for example, you could pretty much have a light on and a TV on. That's about it, right? Which is again, it was what most people typically have anyway, but at that point it's really pushing it. Realistically, I would expect it to be closer to 1000 watts. That way it does give you that leeway to have other things on in that room or in that circuit, etc., etc. But the 1200 watts is still possible because again, the LITE series, that's what some of the higher end ones were. They were right at 1200 watts and essentially not fully maxing out that circuit, but basically, right? So we're going to play the game as if though this guy is going to 3x. So it would bring it up to a 1200 watter and it would bring it up to about 3.54 terahash. Okay. So if we were to just 3x everything, it would be 3.54 terahash at about 1200 watts. If we were to look at what your yield would be at about 37 Kaspa currently, about 615 daily revenue and a profit of $3.27. Which isn't too bad until you factor in what the price could potentially be. Again, the KA Box Pro at this price was potentially pretty okay, but again, 3xing this unit would put you at about 1887. So you figure a good discount for being a bulk unit. It's hard to say realistically. It's probably going to be about $2,000. Reason being is that yes, there should be some kind of discount, maybe like $1,600. But it's very likely based on the size of the unit and because of the wattage that it's probably going to have an internal PSU. Okay, we can't really tell, but that's probably going to be similar to, again, like the Jazz miners or where it's integrated. So I would fully expect that. So because of that, there is going to be that added expense, right? So realistically, a good price point, if it is around in that ballpark of about 3.5 terahash, maybe a little bit lower, because again, realistically, we would want to see the wattage probably closer to 1000 watts. So we could expect like a 3 terahash unit at around 1000 watts or so, and potentially around a $2,000 price point. Okay, is that the worst thing in the world? If you're dead set on it being like a home ASIC, that's gonna be pretty good. If you compare it to any others, it just really depends on what you're looking at. Again, the value is gonna be with the larger, more denser units, both in terms of density, price, and efficiency, right? But if you're dead set on mining Kaspa, that's the only way. Wouldn't be a bad unit. It's hard to justify that price point, right? For that type of profitability currently. Although realistically, again, it wouldn't be that bad. It's just once you get into those kinds of price points, then you kind of start eyeballing the bigger units. Okay, so what does it cost to get 240 volt? What if I were to do this? What if I were to do that? And that's where it gets tricky. But at the end of the day, the efficiency is still good. It's especially comparing it to like my KS3M, for example. This guy comes in at 3 terahash at 1,000 watts. That's not bad at all, considering the KS3M is 6 terahash at like 3,500 or so watts. Okay, so there still is an efficiency gain there, but it's rough, right? Especially because of the prices of like the KS5Ls, for example, right? They're currently down to like 4,500 or so shipped. Probably going to drop a little bit here in the near term. If prices kind of stay where they're at, those could potentially go down to like 4,300 or so. So at this point, it's like, would you get 2 of these to get about 6 terahash, or would you get one of those for about the same price and get 12 terahash, right? So this is where it's hard for the at-home miner, specifically with these ASICs, just because it's hard to keep up with the efficiency. Okay. Again, if the price were to come extra aggressive and be like $1,000 or something, then yes, that's definitely a game changer. I don't see that being the case, right? So realistically, the expectation somewhere around 3 terahash, 1,000 watts or so, potentially about $2,000. Okay, and that's realistically not a bad price. Okay, it's just, again, once you get to that price point, you start comparing it to the bigger units, and that's where it does change a little bit. But as far as being like at home, you could plug it into 110 volt. If you're in, I guess if it works out for you, right? If you have like a larger home where you have a lot of spare bedrooms or a lot of like 15 amp circuits, like you have multiple living rooms, multiple spare bedrooms, then sure, right? So just depends on your use case here. Realistically, I am kind of a bigger fan of this wattage, believe it or not, just because at this point it is more of a legitimate heater also. Like, I know a lot of people saying like, oh, I can use it as a heater. The 1,000 watt range is a legitimate size for like a space heater. At that point, you are going to get some pretty good heat from it, and that is definitely a good use case for that if you're in a colder climate. Again, I'm in Florida, so that don't mean crap to me. But if you're in a cold area where that could be beneficial, definitely a good multi-use thing right there. So let's go to the one that for me is much more intriguing, and it would be for the Alephium potential. Okay, so if we were to compare it, we would essentially do the same kind of comparison. This one does get a little trickier though, just because of the fact that it's kind of overpriced as it is when we compare the GoldShell website. So the KA Box Pro, for example, after this recent price cut that just happened, it is around market price, right? You can make that argument for that. With the AL Box 2, it is at a premium because this thing is available now. We know that the AL0 is a much better price, a much better efficiency, but it's not going to be out for a few weeks, and chances are, again, this Echo thing is going to ship out in the same time window as the AL0 now, most likely. So we're going to kind of base it off of this price, but realistically, it should be closer to the AL0 price, okay? So it's going to be kind of the same mindset. Realistically, I would expect this thing to be the same thing, essentially either a 2 or 3X. Again, if it's 2 of these things, not really interested. If it were 3 of them, then from the density aspect, that would be much more appealing, okay? So again, this guy's coming in at 720 gigahash. If it were to 3X, it would bring you to about 2.16 terahash. Okay, at 2.16 terahash at about 1,080 watts. So realistically, this is one that could stay right in this frame and would do okay. The issue here though is going to be the price. Okay, so if we just 3x the price here, it's pretty extreme, right? It would go up to like $8,280. Again, the issue though is that it's overpriced because of the premium for it being available now. Realistically, it should need to be compared to the AL0. Okay, so at this point, realistically, yes, if we 3x this price, that's what it would be worth, but realistically, it would be the equivalent of about 6 of these. Okay, 6 of these would bring you to about what, 4,800 bucks. Realistically, this would be the better deal still, because again, this would be 2.4 terahash versus the 2.16 theoretical with the other one, as well as this guy being more efficient. This is where the game changer would be, and this is where the standout is much, much greater. If it's only 1 or 2 units, if percentage wise, it's still massive, right? But realistically, a couple hundred watts isn't that big of a deal. But once you scale up, that's when it does become drastic. So for example, the 2.16 terahash would be 1080 watts. 2.4 terahash here would only be about 600 watts. Okay, so that is a pretty massive difference now. Okay, because then at that point you can get a lot more AL0s and continue to stack up from there. So realistically, a more fair price would be if we put it to the equivalent of the AL0, and that would bring you up to 4,800. Is it really worth 4,800 though? Realistically, I would say it'd have to be less just because of the efficiency difference. Okay, so realistically, an ideal price would be about 4,000 bucks. That to me would be more fair. And it's hard to say also just because here you're going to have to pay shipping per individual unit versus paying for shipping for 1 box. Because again, shipping for 6 of these things, $600. Okay, shipping for 1 of those things, anywhere from 1 to 200 bucks depending on the reseller. Okay, so there is that factor there. Also factor in that again, this unit will likely have the PSU integrated, so you don't have to worry about buying 6 individual bricks or 6 power cables to use on a 6-pin like a server power supply or something. So factor that in also. Okay, so realistically, about 4,500 or so, 2.1 terahash, 1080 watts for the AL Echo. Would it be worth it? I mean, again, the calculators, when you punch it in, it's going to look good. Again, 2,160 gigahash, which is the 2.16 terahash, 1080 watts. $52 in current revenue and $49 profit, but again, it's going to be a fraction of this. Again, focus on the yield. It'd be about 34 alpha. I'd say your best case scenario is that it goes down to 1/4 of that. That would bring you down to, let's easy math, about 8 alpha a day. Okay, so 8 alpha, $1.50 an alpha, about 12 bucks. Okay, is 12 bucks worth the 4 grand? It's up to you. I mean, it's really just hard to say. The price, in my opinion, would have to be extremely aggressive just because, again, the efficiency difference. Will they price it fairly? That's the biggest question we have. To me, those price points would be somewhat fair. Realistically, it should be a little bit lower in comparison to this guy. But I would say it's probably going to be in the $5,000 range, right? So $49.99. Realistically, I think a fair price would be $4,000, right? Factoring in everything, but we're gonna have to wait and see. And another huge thing to consider here, what is also likely to happen fairly soon now that GoldShell potentially officially announces that, we may get an official announcement for their mid-range series. Okay, which so far, again, iServer has only announced the AL0. Maybe they'll wait to see what GoldShell does and then price theirs accordingly. Who knows? Again, it's all a game, and now it's between 3 players all at the same time, right? Last time it was just iServer and Bitmain. Now it's GoldShell, iServer, and Bitmain. Okay, so again, it's going to be a game, and this is a game so far that iServer has been winning. Okay, so iServer would be extremely smart for them to wait until the 15th, see what they announce, see what price they announce, and then whatever they have in the pipeline, because it's almost a guarantee that iServer has other units, right? To what extent? Is it just the AL0 and then like a big guy competitor to the big Bitmain unit, or are they going to have in-between units, which again has been more my interest is more so than anything. Okay, so I do fully expect for them to have something, and do not be surprised to see them announce something right after, like either the day of or the day after GoldShell announces theirs. Okay, maybe they put the pressure on them and announce theirs early just to kind of put even more pressure on GoldShell. We're gonna have to wait and see. Again, would I pre-order day 1 on GoldShell? Probably not. Like, even if the price does come in aggressive, even if it is like $39.99, it'd be hard to jump in just because knowing that Ice River is going to have something and it's going to be significantly more efficient. Price-wise is also probably going to be better. Okay, so realistically, the competition is always good because it is going to put more pressure on Ice River because, again, Bitmain is just going to have that big unit. They're not going to release at-home versions. They're not going to release a 0, AL 1, 2, 3, little like variations of it. It's just going to be Ice River. So GoldShell releasing something like this is going to put pressure on Ice River. Potentially, if GoldShell is somewhat competitive. We are hoping that all the bitching and moaning we've been doing the GoldShell, they do kind of start getting it and just pricing within the norm. Okay, because it just makes more sense for them to do that, right? They would have better public sentiment. People would be more about it and focus on volume sales instead of trying to rip people off and try to price things based off of a profitability that we know is not going to be the case once people get it in hand. Okay, the market this time is way smarter. We are way ahead of this. We know the games already. This is why we do these videos. This is that so all of us are on the same page. None of us, or very few of us, get ripped off, and we get the prices that these things really realistically need to be, right? Instead of like doing this thing where they're basing it off of this, people who are unaware or new to the mining game think that, oh yeah, that's a fair price, I'll ROI in X amount of days, when we know it's not true. Okay, so again, that's the purpose of all these things. So we are all more aware. We all know the games. We all know what to expect. And again, we have higher expectations from these manufacturers. Okay, and specifically GoldShell, please price it accordingly. Price it at least in the realm of where it should be. So again, the KA Echo should be somewhere in the $2,000 range. The AL Box 2 anywhere from 4 to 5K. Obviously, the cheaper the better, right? But we're gonna have to wait and see what happens there. But realistically, if it's not priced aggressively, so priced at like under 4,000, the Ice River's efficiency at that scale is much, much more appealing. Okay, and especially the fact that if they do release something that's a direct competitor to that GoldShell, this is likely going to be better. Okay, so we're gonna have to wait and see. Hopefully, we do get surprised. I'm gonna say though, if they do this bullshit where the freaking AL Echo's like 10K or something stupid, then RIP to them. That's all I can say, right? So we're gonna wait and see. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, guys. What's your guys' predictions? What do you guys think the KA Echo is gonna be? What do you think the specs and price are gonna be? And the AL Echo, where do you think the price and specs are gonna be there? Let me know in the comments, guys, what you guys are thinking. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching, and I am out.